Alrighty, week 10 in Node.js. So I want to, and Ikram, thank you. You've had some great questions, so I want to go over those. But before I do, I just want to give you all, and Tim, I know you're already watching the 93 one, but just FYI to be clear, next week, Fresno City is suspending classes, but not online classes. So our class continues as normal. But if you happen to be taking a face-to-face class, make sure you check in with them because there has been a change in our campus, the way we're going to handle next week. So just FYI, and if you have any questions, reach out to me and let me know. So this week's Learn Together, week 10, which I have up there, should be really helpful to get you ready for part 2 of our Develop It. Matter of fact, you can pretty much just rethink what we're doing and set up a new project in your private for dev just for part 2. If you wanted to go ahead and take a look at it, is what I mean by that. So, and this week, so we're in week 10, right? So this week you're going to be doing section 10, so which is the reason I was saying this. So section 10 is all about setting up your local system. And in the video for Learn Together for week 10, I talked about the bash file and how I've modified my bash file to make running things like MongoDB much easier from the command line. But you can also just save that, because once you go through this, you'll see, and you do need to set this up on your local system, that there is some setup that has to be done for you to get through that. Okay, so we'll be on section 10 this week and next, and then I believe right before we head out, which is when our Develop It that week before we head out, I think we just start into section 11. Let me just remind both of us. Yeah, so we just start into 11 right there before the break. Okay. Okay, so let's go look at Ephron's questions for week 9, which, by the way, I'll go ahead, since we're already in here too, and make it unavailable. Okay. So Tim, yeah. Man, Mongo and 3T is really cool. And then we'll add Postman to that in section 11, so that you can actually run make API calls against your own API, so you can test it. So yeah, we're getting into some really helpful skill-based relevant well, it all is, but this specifically. Yeah, so I really think of our chat as a Q&A, but you're right, it's not a formalized one. But Q&A on GitHub. Yeah, you mean my reference. Okay. So I mentioned HTTP hosting and registrar. Are they not always when creating a web project? So depending on the size of your project, for sure, you could have your hosting in one place. Let's say I was hosting my website on Heroku, right? Hosting it. But then my registrar was maybe GoDaddy, or maybe it was Google, because actually Google offers, and there's Enum, there's all these registrars that are out there that just handle your domain. Okay. So when you're talking about this, we're really just talking about the domain. HTTP is a part of is just the way you're communicating between your client and your server. It's the standard protocol for clients and servers to communicate, right? So in this case, this just is what you don't even realize it unless you're thinking about it, because we're building servers. We're thinking about it because we're thinking about HTTP requests and responses and how we handle those. It is, in a sense, part of your hosting, because wherever you're hosted, that's where you're sending those back and forth. And for us, for this week, we learned Heroku. So our HTTP calls, once we post our code out on Heroku, is coming in and out of there. Okay, but again, your registrar is different. Are there any other resources for further comparison of what the list of, I'm not sure if you mean the list of registrars, the list of hosting, right? But if I'll see if I can find just a little more general discussion. I think in my 82 class, I do have some content around that, so I'll see if I can find that and post it. Right. Are there other resources for debugging? That's the key to that message. Besides DevTools, DevTools is of course the most popular thing that Google provides built into Chrome. And are there what other features does Google have for developers? Man, there is so much they have for developers. But when you say specifically for debugging, like there's nothing I can think of the top of my head but it's just there's so much that Google offers to the general developer community. I mean, the whole cloud platform, um, all the tools for GCP, Google Cloud Platform, all the machine learning stuff that they offer. A lot of this is just, it's a free tier and then you pay as you go up. Yeah, so Firebase is a great resource. I'm actually using Firebase right now in my React.js class, just for having some, and it's basically, there's actually, now Firebase has so many different products under the name of Firebase. Like there's analytics, crash analytics for your app development. There's Firestore, which is more an SQL base. There's Firebase, the original product, which is a real-time database, which is what I'm using. So, man, there's just so many. I could point you to the Google developer site to kind of get started with some of that, but it's really like, what part of that do you want to learn? Might help me direct you in more of that area. But just learning how to do a simple host up on GCP is a good thing. Like what we're doing with Heroku right now, with hosting our code, you can easily do on GCP as well. Now the question would be, why aren't more courses like Udemy, courses using Google Cloud Platform? And the answer to that, I believe, based on what I've seen, is because now to use Google Cloud Platform, you have to at least give them a credit card. And they know that many people don't want to do that. So it creates a barrier to that. So then when something is deprecated, it just means that it's no longer going to be used. Okay, that's what that means. Request has been a package that I've been hearing about lately that is going to be deprecated. When somebody else told me that, maybe it was you. Yeah, so here it is that this package has been deprecated. And that just means that they are no longer going to do, they're no longer going to make this available, mostly because there's other things that handle this, like Axios, which we're using. And honestly, now, at least on the client side, we're using Fetch for a lot of this. And I know there's even a Fetch third-party library. And this is basically, again, what we're using. We're using Axios to make actually HTTP request. And so request is going away. Does one still as normally, or are there other steps to take? I'm not sure what you mean by that. And then AE NPM request. Yeah, so that's where I guess if you're asking, is there something else you can use? Also, absolutely, you can use Axios, but you can also use, there is something called NPM, and I think it's just Fetch on the server side that you can use. Yeah, Node Fetch. Node Fetch does that same kind of thing. It's gaining in popularity quite a lot. Look at this, right? So this is kind of the thing that probably is going to take, basically it's going to take the window fetch, which is the client side fetch, onto the server side. So we probably will see this kind of replace a lot of people we've already have that are using Axios. That will maybe switch to this, because when you're used to the way it works on this client side, you can just use it on the server side as well. And then this message is hard for me to see, but I think what this is just just giving you like, so you can actually just add this, right? So it's just basically saying you can add this unified topology equal true into your MongoDB, wherever you set up your MongoDB client. Okay, so that's just, you just need to add that configuration into there. If you need more detail on that, I'll see if I can find a link. Okay, anyway, hope that great. Thank you for asking such great questions. It's fun to answer this stuff because it kind of creates conversation, I hope. But that's what I would also say as of this time that we're at. Like we're moving into our 2 weeks before our next develop it. And the sooner you work on your code, the sooner you can ask me questions, right? But I went over that. If you have specific questions, I'm knowing you reach out to me and let me know. The sooner the better. We can do virtual meetings, whatever works. Okay. All right. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.